Namaste. My name is Preity and I am a global thought leader and a multimedia personality. Welcome to my podcast, The Preity Experience. Join me as I explore some of the most fascinating and crucial issues that affect our world today. I take a unique global perspective on these issues, and the very foundation of my insights is humanity and spirituality. I'm Preity and welcome to the Preity Experience.
In a huge path-breaking move, United States has proposed to bring India to the table for the Afghan peace talks after US proposed a 6-country meet on Afghanistan. S. Jaishankar and US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad discussed the latest developments on Afghanistan. The momentum is building now, with Foreign Secretary Harsh Shringla also discussing Afghanistan with the Russian Foreign Minister. Prime Minister Modi has time and again reiterated that India wants an Afghan-led peace process. This move comes as a huge blow to China and Pakistan, who've never wanted India to be on the table. So what does this mean and what comes next? Can India help save Afghanistan's future is the big question. Joining us to look at this story forward is Ambassador Deepak Vora, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. We also have Dr. Wael Awad, senior foreign journalist, joining us live. Preity Uppala, editor of The Observer, California, is also live with us. We have Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, joining us on the broadcast as well. Professor Nalapat, let me begin with you first. How do you react to this latest development now coming in, with the US now formally advocating that India be part of this peace talks process?
Well, I think it's a very welcome sign, and it's also very significant that Russia has adamantly opposed India getting involved in anything to do with Afghanistan, and that's obviously at the prompting of China. You'll remember that Russia threw Armenia under the bus because the Chinese told them to stand by, while their friends, the Azerbaijanis, completely made mincemeat out of the Armenian military. So the reality is that the global geopolitics is becoming clearer and clearer. The Sino-Russian alliance is becoming clearer and clearer. And the sad truth is, as far as Afghanistan is concerned, and significantly a large part of what their policy to India is concerned, it is actually the Pakistan that is in the driver's seat, and which is bad news for the Afghans, bad news for India, bad news for the United States and for every other democracy. And this is why it's very welcome that India is at the table, despite the opposition of China, Russia and Pakistan.
Indeed, and at the end of the day, of course, interestingly, Professor Nalapat, just to quickly add to that before I get in the other panelists, we're seeing Secretary Harsh Shringla hold dialogue with the Russians on the peace process as well. So it's not just the US, but even Russia seems to be on board, because they're talking Afghanistan with us too, despite their initial reservations, as you were just pointing out.
Well, I'd like to say that I think, we are very romantic in our policies, and we are often 2 or 3 steps behind in terms of understanding the era that we are living in. And yes, Foreign Minister Shringla is in Russia, but I do hope that Foreign Minister Shringla has a clear understanding of the situation regarding Cold War 2.0 and what side the Russians are on, so far as that is concerned. Frankly, let me tell you that throughout the 70 and odd years of Indian foreign policy, we have seen multiple errors made by India because it is just not understood the changes that the era has brought. And so far as the discussions the Russians are concerned, well, if there is any kind of illusion that Russia today is what the USSR was to India yesterday, well, those illusions are being dashed even now as we speak, with the recognition that Russia opposed India's role in Afghanistan. I hope Foreign Secretary Shringla has made this point very strongly.
Indeed, and let me in fact also rope in Dr. Wael Awad at that point as well. Dr. Awad, your observations, of course, and reactions to these latest developments coming in. India has always backed an Afghan-led peace process. Will that now see the light of day with us also now on the talking table? How do you view this backing by the US for India to also sit on the talking table and be very much part of this process?
Well, I think I do differ a little with the Professor Nalapat in regards to Russian rule and keeping India out pay of the Afghan issue, because Afghanistan has always been on the card whenever the bilateral discussion takes place between India and Russia, and it has been always well informed. In fact, even the Russian initiative in Afghanistan was very strong and India was well informed. The problem here was that the United States and the allies were not willing to have Russian initiatives to solve the Afghan problem. And then here you are calling the American an honest peace broker in Afghanistan after 20 years of invasion. It is really difficult for me to digest that American can be at any stage a serious peace broker in any peace deal anywhere in the world. They have shown us the opposite, whether it is in Iraq, whether it is in Libya, whether it is in Yemen, whether it is in Syria, anywhere in the world. I don't see the Americans are really doing the good job. What we are seeing here is a new policy of Joe Biden. He's having a new strategy for the United States and an overall strategy that they wanted to go away from wars were costing the American taxpayer monies, and that's why they wanted to keep away. They wanted an immediate regional summit on this issue, so that, as I have been saying in your channel for years, the Americans create the problem and then they invade, they create the chaos, then they call the international community to participate, then we have to see the management of the crisis. That's the American policy. That's what has been happening all over the world, and the history tells us all this. So I think the initiative of the American have nothing to do, except that even we remember that Khalilzadeh was himself the same envoy of the previous government, and now the same government and the new government, so make no difference, because there is a continuity of the same policy of the United States toward Afghanistan. I think these are the issues we have to really hit hard at it, because I think the American also try to learn from India when India told them to shut up their mouth when it comes to talking about their achievement in Afghanistan. And India told them very clearly that keep a low profile, as we do, because India have been doing the best for Afghan people. India was the only country in the world for the last 2 decades have been contributing lavishly and generously to the Afghan people, more than $3 billion. So I think India rule now, maybe America is finding a rule for India, but India has been always there, and Indian foreign policy have shown us that they have been able to approach all the parties concerned and putting across a pressure on Pakistan to make sure in Pakistan and Taliban that India is very much there to play, because it's a major stakeholder in the region and in the regional stability of Afghanistan.
And also I want to quickly ask you, Dr. Awad, then about what India's role really is going to be. What do you believe we're going to push for in this dialogue process? What will be our contribution, if you can just list out in 3-4 points?
I think India's contribution will be on the human rights issue and the woman empowerment in Afghanistan, and in respect also adherence to the constitution of Afghanistan, where the Taliban, even if they have to join the deal, they have to adhere to the constitution, where there is no way of bringing back terrorism and extremism and Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda into their fold. So therefore, India is a major stakeholder, as I said, and will play a major role in also stabilizing this region, irrespective of whether China or Pakistan or any other country does not like India to play. I think India is here for a proactive role, and we are going to see in the coming days and months that India will take a leading role in bringing peace back to Afghanistan, if the United States is seriously wanted peace in Afghanistan.
Okay, well, let's quickly also rope in Ambassador Deepak Vora at this point. Ambassador Deepak Vora, this obviously does speak volumes of the India-US partnership, but this does speak volumes about India's positive role that has been acknowledged now by the world community, even by the Russians, is what Dr. Awad says, in Afghanistan. Obviously, Pakistan and China have played a very negative role in this region, which is why their hopes are dashed, as India now is going to be more involved in this peace process.
Thank you very much. Always a great honor and pleasure to learn from you, from the other participants. What you see behind me is the Pamir North, where the Hindu Kush, Pamir, Tian Shan, Kundun and Himalayas all meet in Badakhshan in northeast Afghanistan. So I'm particularly delighted to learn from you and the others, because my family Dr. Awad is originally from Ghazni. My grandparents spoke Pashto fluently. May I just say to you that 20 years is a long time for stabilizing any conflict within the country. Afghanistan has frequently defied timelines and solutions. It's not for nothing it has been called the graveyard of empires. I entirely agree with Professor Awad that the Afghans across the board, top to bottom, see India as a friend that has stood by them in their moments of difficulty. We've called for an Afghan peace process that is Afghan-led, and we have assisted in their development. Professor Nalapat, you permit me to disagree. Our foreign policy is not romantic. It might appear to be so, sir, but it's extremely hard-headed, the people who are doing it now. What is the interest of the Afghan government led by Ashraf Ghani, sir? He doesn't want to be booted out. He was elected even though it was 2 million people who voted. This was just 2 years ago. He is the president, and he has complained that they are talking about my country without involving the president. As far as the American is concerned, he's a bit of an obstacle. So if he goes away, there is no issue. US wants to get out, but doesn't want to leave Afghanistan in a mess. I hope not, because they have seen what the consequences of that could be. Russia, sir, there's a very strong historical memory of what happened to them when they went into Afghanistan. They wouldn't like to see that happen. I'm not going to give you a lesson in history. It's just that at one point they felt that radical Islam in Afghanistan would have threatened the soft Islamic underbelly of the former Soviet Union. China, again, it's the Islamic factor, but they would like to sit on the sidelines watching and by default acquire some kind of a role. They have no role whatsoever, even though that panhandle gives them a common border with Afghanistan. Pakistan still have delusions about strategic depth and would like to see a government in Afghanistan that is friendly to them, which in other words is the Taliban, even though the Taliban do not like. Therefore, so to sum up the entire thing, the interests of the different countries are totally divergent. The only country, I believe, Professor Awad, I hope you agree with me, that has the welfare of the Afghans at heart, not the welfare of the country, of its own country, of itself. The only country that wants Afghanistan to be peaceful, stable, and developed is India, sir. I rest my case. And if India has been involved, it's because the Afghans themselves understand this. The world understands this, sir.
Okay, the world understands this, of course. What is going to be India's contribution now, in your opinion, Ambassador Deepak Vora? What are the points we should put on the table now that we're formally on board?
Well, we are going to say that the peace process, as we have always claimed, has to be Afghan-led. You can't get rid of the president right now and say we're going to impose somebody else. Whatever agreement is signed, the important things, why did the US go in the first place 20 years ago? I mean, of course, there was the attack, there was 9/11 and all that stuff, but they also said we want women's rights, we want human rights, we want all this. These are all values that India cherishes, and India is going to insist on this. If there is a constitution, the Taliban will have to respect that, the Afghan government will have to respect, and the guarantors of Afghan's peace and development will also have to respect that. I believe that is the role that India will play in evolving a consensus, sir, evolving a consensus on the way forward for Afghanistan, if I may add on a personal note, so that my ancestors who sleep in Ghazni would lie in peace.
Preity Upala, come in here. You know, what can be read into this, of course, for our positive role in Afghanistan, for now, you know, our points which are going to be formally on the table, but also, you know, does this speak volumes of the India-US friendship, partnership as well?
Well, namaste, Mr. Singh, and thank you for having me on your show. Always nice to be on your amazing panels. Yes, this is a fantastic sign, I would say, of this administration. Although US-India relations have been, you know, tight, even in the Trump administration, I think we're seeing, you know, they're going one step further here, and they're really involving India. I have seen recently with their policies on more than one occasion. I think the US is realizing that the greatest stakeholder in this Afghan peace process, actually, other than Afghanistan itself, actually is India. Because not only have we been for the last 2 decades been supporting the democratically elected governments there, and also the welfare of the Afghani people, but we stand to lose a lot if things go array there. We will be the greatest victims of the fallout should the US leave leaving a vacuum there, or if the radicalization takes control, it'll actually be India who's going to suffer the most. That fallout is going to enter through Kashmir and other regions of our own country. So I think the U.S. is slowly understanding that you can't have this Afghan peace process without India's involvement, and so they're wisening up. I don't know who they're getting their briefs from, but I'm happy to hear this. I would have been extremely disappointed if they had these 6 other countries on the table and not India. And also, I think the Russian ambassador to India recently made a statement that he wants to nurture an independent relationship with Pakistan, just as Russia does with India. And obviously they're allowed to do that as a sovereign nation. But I just hope that he was diplomatic in what he was saying, and that he knows better. I actually happen to know the ambassador personally, and I know he's a very, very astute diplomat. So I hope that he understands the Russian-Indian dynamic, and that he should know better that nothing good is ever going to come from a deeper relationship with Pakistan. And to Russia, of all countries, I don't think they offer much. So I really want to see this continue. I want to see India step up and take an even more assertive role. They need to put their hand up and say, we may have the solution for you. We may have the answers. Hear us out. We have a plan for you. They haven't done that in the past, So I'd like to see Jaishankar really, sort of double down on this. This would be the opportunity now that they're on the high table. So let's see how things unfold.
Okay, let me quickly go back across to Dr. Awad and and ask him a counter question. Dr. Awad, Professor Nalapat also was making this point earlier. Now, why this is, of course, a blow to Russia also is because there were reports coming in that Russian interlocutors, because of course, the growing proximity that we have been seeing between Moscow and Beijing, were actually seeking, we're learning, to keep India out. They wanted Russia, China, US, Pakistan and Iran to be on the table, not India. And in fact, this obviously was being done, of course, for China, but mainly at the behest of Pakistan, who obviously did not want India to be part of any roadmap for the region. But of course, India has turned things around. We've reached out to everyone. And thanks to Washington's backing, we're on the table. This is perhaps why we were raising that point earlier. Dr. Awad, how do you respond?
Well, if you want to tell me that it is the United States who's calling the shot in South Asia, then I will not agree with you. But I will agree with you if you tell me India diplomatic moves are the one behind which have pushed all the stakeholders to accept India, even the Taliban. When India went and participated in the table with the Taliban, and also Pakistan came in terms of India and also signed with the adhering to the truce in the 2003 and on the border in LOC. All these signs are that yes, America is using its own pressure tactic for its own benefit, but India is doing differently for its national interest. That's the two different issue. They may have commonality in certain issue, but definitely there will be difference when it comes to implementation on the ground. And if the United States is leaking the letters and saying that they wanted a Taliban-led government, I'm sure that India will tell them, no, we are not interested that currently either we and Ashraf Ghani in Afghanistan, also whom we have supported the North Alliance, India will not accept a US-led mission in Afghanistan where it's not adhering to the constitution and the normalcy of keeping Afghanistan at, quiet and no terrorism. If that is the issues, India finally, yes, I could say that India, yes, have accepted the American term. The Russian also have briefed India extensively. I have been in touch with my Russian connections, and they have been telling me that we have never kept India out of the discussion. In fact, it was Taliban and the Pakistanis who were putting the pressure. We wanted to reach to an initiative, but we have not kept India in the dark. If that was the mission now, if United States is applying pressure, fair enough. Let's see if that can lead to a comprehensive peace in Afghanistan, where all where all the factions of Afghanistan can take part in that sort of government. But if the United States, wanted to leave in a hurry in Afghanistan and create a vacuum where the terrorists can come, where Iran is the next target, where China is the target, then we are heading for more trouble in South Asia. Trust me on that. That India has to fasten its belt to deal with those issues in its own interest if you wanted to fight terrorism.
Okay, Professor Nalapat, come in here.
Well, yeah, I'd only like to say very clearly, there is no question of a reconciliation between the Taliban and the elected government of Ashraf Ghani. The Taliban wants to destroy the government. They want to destroy it from within. They're not even recognizing President Ghani. They're not recognizing the government. They don't want to even discuss with the government. The Americans are very clear. They want to leave Afghanistan in terms of their troops. My expectation is that they will leave enough equipment behind and weapons behind for the brave Afghans to themselves take up arms and ensure that the Taliban and their Pakistani patrons do not succeed. This is a battle between two views, two visions of the future. One is the Talibanist vision, which denies opportunity to women, which denies opportunity to minorities and to moderates. And the other is the vision of the Ghani government, which is inclusive and which is modern, and which frankly is the vision of India, Indonesia, countries like that. So this is a contradiction, very frankly, to talk about this grand peace agreement in which all sides will agree, because the reality is these two sides are completely hostile to each other. And as correctly been hinted, India definitely is no friend of the Taliban, and the United States insisting on India indicates that Joe Biden is a lot wiser than Donald Trump in understanding what the Taliban is. As for the Russians, well, they know exactly what Pakistan is. They have suffered at the hands of Pakistan, at the hands of the Taliban. So I would only say, because I respect that country, I respect their people. I hope that, when you sup with the devil, sup with a long spoon. I hope they have a very, very long spoon. But the reality is today, Russia is now dependent on China for its economic viability. And for that reason, it is constrained severely in its policy, including towards India.
Okay, well, clearly, of course, but Professor Nalapat, Dr. Awad asking the point there, is this the US calling the shots, or is this because of India's diplomatic overtures?
This is the Afghan people calling the shots. The Afghan government has made it clear explicitly that they are not in favor of Donald Trump's embrace of the Taliban. Donald Trump pretended that he was against Wahhabism and extremism. The man goes and embraces Erdogan, which is today the leader of the Wahhabi International. The man goes and falls at the feet of the Taliban. And we all know that if you call the Taliban moderate, well, then you could have called Osama bin Laden a votary of peace. The reality is that the Taliban is bad news, the Pakistan military is bad news, and China, by strengthening these forces, is also bad news. So I'd like to say I am delighted that India is there, and I hope I hope the ambassador is right, that our diplomats understand the reality, and that whatever they say in public, and we have heard some very vague and very all kinds of things in public. In private, India is firm that no extremism, no Taliban. The government of Afghanistan is the elected government, and they have to be supported 100%, not 99, 100%. And I think that is India's role, and that is the best role that India can play.
Indeed. Let me quickly go back across to Ambassador Vohra. I think you wanted to come in. Go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to say that the Americans have given every sign that Afghanistan is no longer a major consideration for them. They see Ghani as an obstacle to a peace deal. He's wedded to the status quo, which keeps NATO troops in the country and him in power. Now, interestingly, sir, I read that when Ashraf Ghani assembled his negotiators for the discussion with the Taliban, he told them that he gave them a historical seminar on persistent conflicts. Colombia's civil war lasted 52 years, Nepal's 10, Sri Lanka's 25. His message was that long wars take a long time to end. When we were talking, when the Americans and the Viets were talking about ending the Vietnam War, it took 3 months just to agree on the shape of the negotiating table. So the message he was trying to drive home, it's not very easy. You don't come to these deals in 10 days or 15 days or 2 months or 1 year. Possibly the most favorable outcome of the talks is a ceasefire and agreement to form a transitional government with power shared between the Taliban and the existing government, subject to the condition that the Taliban renounce violence and terrorism. I believe, so if this happens, then a transitional government could write a new constitution, lay the groundwork for nationwide election. Although the signs are not hopeful, in the negotiations we are told the Taliban and the government representatives have been shouting and screaming and hurling abuse at each other. Oh, we think you guys have come to surrender. Government guys saying, we don't like you fellas, go away, go back to the bush or wherever. It's just not going to work out unless there is goodwill. There is a total trust deficit between the different players, and that trust, the one nation that can provide the healing touch, I repeat this again, even though Professor Nalapat might disagree, the one nation that can provide the healing touch is India, sir.
I think he's in agreement on that.
Thank you very much.
Preity Upala?
Professor Nalapat, you're in a minority of one.
Well, there's no problem. It's a privilege to be in a minority that's always right.
Well, at least
Yes.
we are courteous about this.
And I think a more peaceful world only benefits everyone. I just want to say that for the 4 years of the Trump administration, I've been harping on that they need to tear up that original Afghan peace process, because it was not sound. It was not going to lead to peace of any kind. So I'm very happy that they're sort of reneging on that and re-looking at it, restructuring it, understanding that there are more players that need to be called in, and their entire approach to this so-called peace process does need to be looked at very differently. And I agree with what's been said. I think this really is an internal matter where you do get the Taliban, teaming up with the democratically elected government. Only the Afghani people can solve this. I think foreign intervention has only messed up the problem even more. And sadly, India being so close to Afghanistan, we've suffered as a result. And I know that there's so much love there between the Afghans and the Indians, and I mean, you can throw in cricket there as well. That's another national obsession, just like it is for us, which is beautiful. But I think that the world is going to be a better place if India steps up and plays a much stronger role. And yes, I do agree. I think it's not just the US now who's assembling all of this. I think India and the Afghani people are also asking for this. So I think the US is understanding that they need to work as a team, especially in this situation, because there's so many countries actually involved in it. And I think Russia is wise enough to also know that. So let's hope that the next 2-3 years we'll see great advancements towards peace, not just for the Afghan people, but for the whole world altogether. Thank you.
Okay.
I think I can add the last point here. I fully agree with Preity on her point of view, but I think what we should draw lessons from intervention in Afghanistan, that foreign intervention, proxy wars are the main cause of all the trouble in the region. So let the people of Afghanistan have peace and stay in peace and have a solution for their own. Whether it is in Afghanistan, whether it is in Syria or Yemen, all over the world, we should stop creating more battle zone.
And perhaps that's something that India will advocate for formally now, won't it, Professor Nalapat?
Well, one thing we should advocate, Pakistan Army, please keep out. You've done enough damage to Afghanistan. You've done enough damage to your own country. Look after your own country. Leave Afghanistan alone. I hope that at least in private, our diplomats speak a very strong language, because I can tell you, these are people who only respect that kind of strength. We have a strong Prime Minister, and we need to have strong policies to back up his intentions.
All right, let's leave it at that. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the Newsx YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.